Ah, the French champagne.
I think all the subplots like are really are good. I mean, I'm not sure about the whole an ex-lover and I have a son now and that whole bit.
Oh, yeah.
It's
My son.
the midlife crisis and all. Oh, when they hug at the end and he does this awkward shoulder pat. That was pretty clutch. But yeah, in the commentary, the director mentioned that he was tired of Star Trek, like all the characters seeming very like wooden or like kind of this like glorified, like we are space commanders. And he's like, oh, well, you know, I didn't show Kirk going to the bathroom or anything, but I really wanted to try to bring it down to like a human allegory and like just kind of demystify the whole thing a little bit.
Right. Some glasses, maybe.
Yeah, which I thought was really effective.
For sure. Yeah, it's well crafted. I got to give it that. But I think we can't leave the story category without talking about, because story is a category that's like the overall shape of it, how it's being told, but also sometimes just straight up the script itself. And a definite minus to Clone Wars, or Attack of the Clones, I should say.
You don't say.
I don't say that. Is, again, what they were trying to do is one thing. How it came out is another. And what the actual lines are some truly classic lines of schlock. Like Anakin's very first line to Padme when she says, "You've grown," and he says, "So have you. More beautiful, I mean."
Yep. And then like a few lines later, he talks about how she stayed the exact same because he dreams about her every night. I started keeping track of creep factors in this film.
So how did you watch any of it?
So like I can sense everything going on as she sleeps. I can tell everything going on. I've thought about her every day. I'd much rather dream about Padme. To Obi-Wan, this was a creepy line. "You're the closest thing I have to a father." Getting oh, and then when he full on like throws a hissy fit because she wants to go stay at her country house. And you're like, he's in charge of security. Wow. And then the next scene, they kiss.
Yeah, after he compares her to not sand.
Yeah.
That classic, that infamous moment of "I hate sand. It's so coarse and dry.
Yeah.
Not
Rough
like you."
and irritating. It gets everywhere.
Yeah, it gets everywhere. You're everything smooth. And then they kiss. Like right after.
I got the impression that but before writing this movie, George Lucas had never spoken to a woman before.
Maybe
Correct.
still to this day.
Yeah.
It's pretty evident in Han Solo, too. Han Solo's the romance of the OG trilogy, and he gets Carrie Fisher merely by, like, yelling at her a lot.
And then he kisses her.
And then he kisses her, and she says, "I love you."
But,
and he says, "I know."
in his defense, Han Solo's is cool. He's a cool guy.
Cool guy.
Anakin's cool. What are you guys talking about?
They really should make a young Jedi series where Anakin's the kid that just gets like beat up in the hallways and like stands next to the speaker during school dances to blow out his eardrums, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, have any of you seen the Clone Wars animated series? I know it's a separate thing, but
which one? The Genndy Tartakovsky one or the
newer? The newer
one. I'm familiar with the Genndy Tartakovsky one.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar,
I haven't seen it yet. I've been meaning to watch it.
Do it.
Yeah, I've heard good things. Well, it's funny because with the story and this movie, it's like there's all these great ideas, but then it just like they don't get served up properly. And I love that they were able to make a 7-season animated series that explores these ideas like well and actually executes them decently. And it's just too bad that there were all those. Another bit of dialogue that I love.
Oh, we lost him. We lost you for a second.
Another bit of dialogue that you love?
Yeah, well, that I actually hate. I don't love it.
Okay.
Obi-Wan in the entire prequel trilogy, especially episode 2 and 3, when Anakin jumps out of the speeder and it's like, I hate it when he does that.
Yeah.
And it's just every single line he says is this dorky ass pun. And I don't know, Obi-Wan in episode 2 and 3 is just barf-tastic. Like his
Yeah, Ewan McGregor's not super great. Well, that's the acting. I want to pinpoint a moment in the world George Lucas is trying to build. He's trying to show us. He wants to show us that the Jedi safeguard this benevolent republic where everyone's voice is heard, and it's like an ideal. Blah 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 blah. So in this movie, we get a scene where two Jedi walk into a bar. Insert punchline here. And within 30 seconds, one of the Jedi tells a man to go home and rethink his life choices, which I've always laughed at and thought was a good thing. But then when you think about it, you're like, holy shit, you are now like the deciders of what is morally right and wrong in the universe. And then 30 seconds later, Obi-Wan cuts a woman's arm off, who's assaulting him, sure, but cuts a woman's arm off. And Anakin says, nothing to see here, Jedi business, go back to your drinks.
And then they pull her out to the back alley.
Yeah, and then they take her. What the fuck kind of republic is this, you sons of bitches?
Yeah, and not only that, there's just so many things that are in speaking of Obi-Wan as well, things that are just written backwards. Like they don't make sense even in like the context of 5 minutes. Right before that scene, Anakin wants to run in after him, and Obi-Wan is like, wait, like think it through, like whatever he says, that same old like Jedi kind of bullshit that becomes really annoying in these movies. The monk stuff, right? Which is one, assuming that there isn't a back door that they can run through. They just assume that they're going to be trapped in this place. It's kind of weird. But he says that, and literally like 3 minutes before, we saw Obi-Wan like impulsively dive through a window to grab onto a robot that was flying away. Yeah. It doesn't make, it's totally backwards. Like it's kind of obvious that Anakin should be the person who dives through the window. Mm-hmm. Like that should be, it couldn't be clearer if that's the characters that you're trying to write. It's just so inconsistent at every step of the way, these movies. And again, that it kind of becomes laughable.
They just wanted to set up the action sequence of him flying on the robot, right? Like that was the vehicle to make that happen. Yeah. And I know George Lucas, when he talks about these movies, he says like they are action movies. They're and that's like the lens and the focus. And yeah, I think that's why so many other things fall apart, because they were so concerned with the visuals and the and the shots and stuff, right? That the script, doesn't really matter.
Clearly didn't matter at all.
Yeah.
And this is also the second Star Wars film in a row at the point it was released, where there's a pivotal battle at the climax, much like in Empire, we have a big battle at the beginning. We have the big battle in A New Hope and the big battle at the end of Jedi. But the battles in these two prequel films are just like put all your soldiers in a row and march them at each other and pew pew at each other. There's no thought into like, oh, we're on a desert planet. Maybe on wide plains, wide sand dunes, you don't just line up all your men in front of the lasers. There was intelligent thought in the original trilogy. The Battle of Hoth, they're dug in, and they have to send in their heavy assault troops to blow them out of their dug in positions. In Jedi, the speeder chase through the forest. Those are cool, but there's no thought about these battles.
I didn't understand why the clone army would land on the ground at all.
Or why did the Jedi go in 20 minutes before the main forces arrive, just to like, you're killing all your Jedi just because you want to have a cool moment where the clone army arrives? Yoda, you're an awful general, resign.
Well, they were trying to get there before the prisoners were eaten by crazy pragmatist beasts, right?
Before Natalie Portman lost more of her clothing.
Yeah.
They were trying to find that sweet spot. Lose a bit of clothing, but not too much.
Yeah. I was confused as to why this movie was called Attack of the Clones.
They attack at the end.
Yeah,
they attack, they retaliate to protect the people that they're supposed to protect as
they
like
invade
a military body.
Yeah, they invade a planet.
The deployment of the clones just doesn't ring as well.
Yeah. I guess.
It's the whole thing too with it being called the Clone Wars. And when you hear that in episode 4, and I think like older generation Star Wars fans, it's like, oh, what are the Clone Wars? Like there's this cloning experiment and it goes wrong and the Republic has to fight a bunch of clones. It's like, nope, it's just a war where clones fought in it. It's not a war with clones.
And do you remember Boba Fett, who was in like 3 scenes in the original trilogy and really did nothing whatsoever? Yeah, his dad is the guy who gives all the clones their DNA. So,
The galaxy's way too small. There's some stuff there that just really, and George Lucas describes it as poetry or like rhyming couplets.
They rhyme.
There's rhymes, and it's like, give me a break,
God.
you fucking hack.
And what is like what has to happen in a galaxy far, far away a long time ago for a alien species to run a diner on Coruscant that is identical to an Earth 1950s diner? Like, is he Doctor Who? Is Dex Doctor Who in like some form we haven't seen or something?
I liked the set.
I like
didn't make
Dex.
any sense. I liked Dex a lot. I thought it was cool that Obi-Wan and him had this like we're friends from back. And he's like, oh, and now this like what did Dex do before that he knows all this stuff?
Yeah.
And how did Obi-Wan and him become friends? Like,
Well, you're lucky, Adam.
Disney
Disney has just announced the three-season Dex show.
Dexter Jetster solo
Dexter
film?
Jester solo series. It's gonna be
series.
They have 3 seasons already signed on. It's gonna be great. You're gonna love
on
it.
Disney Plus.
Disney Plus only.
subscribe.
Yeah.
What you don't realize, Sean, is that like styles come in cycles, right? Like to be retro and vintage. It's just that cycle's been going on longer than you realize. That's
It rhymes. It rhymes. It's
it
a
rhymes.
pattern.
It's like
Yeah.
poetry.
Yeah.
That he would compare these movies to poetry is fucking insane. Okay, I think we'll explore more of these topics in other categories. So I think I'm going to end the round. Yeah.
Yeah.
So end of round.
Yeah.
The citizen game of the week is